I never believed in fate until the day I walked into that cafe and felt an alpha's eyes burn into my soul. It was an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. Rain drummed against the windows as I shook droplets from my umbrella, the bell above the door chiming softly. The cafe smelled like roasted coffee beans and cinnamon, comforting and warm. I was just another Omega looking for shelter from the storm, nothing special about me or this moment. Then I felt it, that overwhelming pressure of an alpha's presence, so intense it made my knees weak. I looked up and saw him. Tall, dressed in an expensive black coat, with dark eyes that widened the moment they landed on me. His coffee cup clattered against the saucer. The sound echoed through the suddenly silent cafe. Everyone turned to look, sensing the shift in atmosphere that only happens when an alpha loses control of their pheromones. His scent rolled over me like a wave, cedar and smoke, tinged with something sharp and painful. Raw, consuming grief mixed with shock so profound it made my chest ache. I should have run. Every instinct screamed at me to leave, but my feet wouldn't move. We stood frozen, staring at each other across the crowded room. His face had gone pale, as if he'd seen a ghost. Then, before I could process what was happening, two small figures barreled past the alpha and ran straight toward me. "Mama!" the little girl shrieked, her tiny arms wrapping around my legs with surprising strength. Mama came back. My heart stopped. The boy, slightly older, crashed into me next, burying his face against my side. His whole body trembled as he breathed in deeply, and I heard the small, broken sound he made, half sob, half laugh. "You smell like Mama," he whispered, his voice cracking. "You smell exactly like Mama." Panic flooded through me. I looked desperately at the alpha, silently begging him to do something, to pull his children away, to explain that I wasn't whoever they thought I was. But he just stood there, his expression twisted with an emotion so complex I couldn't name it. Longing. Confusion. The little girl was crying now, her fingers clutching my coat with desperate intensity. "Don't leave again, Mama. Please don't leave. We missed you so much." My throat closed up. I wanted to tell them I wasn't their parent, that this was a terrible mistake, but how could I break the hearts of children who were already so clearly shattered? The boy's shoulders shook with silent sobs, and I found my hand moving of its own accord, settling gently on his head. The moment I touched him, he looked up at me. His eyes, so hopeful, so full of desperate need, made something crack open inside my chest. "I'm not," I started, but the words died on my lips. The alpha had finally moved, crossing the cafe in 3 long strides. Up close, the grief rolling off him was suffocating. His hand reached out, trembling, stopping just inches from my face. "How?" he breathed. "How is this possible?" I didn't have an answer. I'd never heard of 2 Omegas sharing the exact same scent. It was supposed to be impossible, as unique as a fingerprint. But the way these children clung to me, the way the alpha stared at me like I was a miracle and a curse combined, I couldn't deny the truth of it. "We should talk," he said quietly, his voice rough with emotion. "Please. Just give me a moment to understand this." That's how I ended up in their home, sitting on an expensive leather sofa while 2 children refused to let go of my hands. The apartment was beautiful and suffocating, filled with family photos that made my stomach twist. In every picture, I saw him, the Omega whose scent I shared. Smiling, laughing, holding these same children when they were babies. He looked nothing like me. Different hair, different face, different build. We were nothing alike except for the one thing that mattered most in this world. Our scent. The alpha stood by the window, his back to us, shoulders rigid with tension. "He died 6 months ago," he said finally. "Car accident. It was sudden." The little girl squeezed my hand tighter. "Mama was going to pick up our birthday cake," she whispered. "We were turning 5. But Mama never came home." My eyes burned with unshed tears. 6 months. These children had been grieving for 6 months, and then I'd walked into their lives smelling exactly like the parent they'd lost. It was cruel. The universe was unspeakably cruel. "I'm sorry," I managed. "I'm so sorry." The alpha turned, and I saw tears tracking down his face. "Don't apologize." This isn't your fault. It's just. He laughed, but it was a broken sound. I thought I was going insane when I caught your scent. I thought I was finally losing my mind with grief. What do we do? I asked quietly. He shook his head. I don't know. But look at them. His gaze dropped to his children, who were pressed against my sides like they'd never let go. I haven't seen them this calm since the funeral. They barely sleep. They hardly eat. And now they were breathing easier, their small bodies relaxing for the first time in months. The boy had his eyes closed, just breathing in my scent like it was oxygen. The girl was humming softly, a sound of pure contentment. 1 hour, the alpha said desperately. Could you stay for 1 hour? Just so they can have this moment of peace. I should have said no. Every rational part of my brain screamed that this would only make things worse, that I'd be giving these children false hope. But as I looked down at their faces, so young, so broken, so desperate for comfort, I found myself nodding. 1 hour, I agreed. I didn't know then that 1 hour would turn into days, then weeks. I didn't know that I'd become so tangled in their lives that leaving would feel like tearing out my own heart. I didn't know that the alpha would look at me one evening, his expression torn between guilt and something that looked dangerously like love, and whisper, "Stay." But in that moment, sitting on that sofa with 2 grieving children clinging to me like a lifeline, I made a choice that would change everything. I stayed. 3 weeks had passed since that rainy afternoon, and I still couldn't bring myself to leave. Every morning, I told myself it would be my last day. Every evening, I found another excuse to stay. The children needed me. Just one more bedtime story. Just one more breakfast together. Just one more day of watching their smiles return, slow and fragile like flowers after winter. I was lying to myself, and I knew it. The truth was simpler and more terrifying. I was falling in love with a family that wasn't mine, filling a space left by someone I could never replace. Higher. Push me higher, the little girl squealed from the swing, her laughter bright as bells. We were at the park near their apartment, the autumn air crisp and golden. I pushed her gently, watching her hair stream behind her like silk ribbons. The boy sat beside me on the bench, his small hand tucked into mine. He didn't talk as much as his sister, but his grip was constant, as if he feared I'd vanish the moment he let go. Do you think Mama is watching us? He asked suddenly, his voice so quiet I almost missed it. My chest tightened. I think, if there's any way they can, yes. They're watching and they're proud of how brave you've been. He nodded slowly, then leaned his head against my arm. I know you're not really Mama, he whispered. I'm not stupid. You look different and your voice is different. But when I smell you, it feels like they're here. Does that make me bad? Tears stung my eyes. I squeezed his hand gently. No, sweetheart. That doesn't make you bad at all. It makes you human. Then why does Papa look so sad when he watches you with us? I didn't have an answer for that. The alpha had been avoiding me lately, leaving early for work and coming home after the children were asleep. When we did cross paths, the tension between us was thick enough to choke on. Grief, guilt, and something else. Something neither of us dared name. That night, everything changed. I was putting the children to bed when I heard the front door slam so hard the walls shook. Angry voices erupted from the living room. The alpha's voice and another man's, equally furious. You're being selfish, the stranger shouted. Those children need to heal, not be fed a comfortable lie. Don't you dare tell me what my children need, the alpha roared back. You didn't see them after the funeral. You didn't watch them stop eating, stop sleeping, stop living. I tucked the blankets around the children, who'd gone very still, eyes wide with fear. Stay here, I whispered, kissing both their foreheads. Everything's okay. But it wasn't okay. I could feel it in my bones as I walked down the hallway, my heart hammering against my ribs. The stranger stood in the living room, tall and imposing, his alpha pheromones clashing violently with the children's father. He turned when I entered, his eyes narrowing with instant dislike. So this is the replacement, he said coldly. The poor Omega you've dragged into your delusion. Get out, the alpha growled, his voice dangerous. I'm their uncle, the stranger said, ignoring him and addressing me directly. Did my brother-in-law tell you that? Did he mention that he's using you to avoid dealing with his grief? That he's confusing his children by letting them pretend you're someone you're not? Each word hit like a physical blow. I'd thought these same things 1,000 times in the dark hours of the night, but hearing them spoken aloud made them unbearably real. I'm not trying to replace anyone, I said quietly. But you are, he insisted, stepping closer. Every day you stay here, you make it harder for them to move on. You're a living ghost, haunting this family with false hope. That's enough. The alpha stepped between us, his whole body vibrating with barely controlled rage. You have no right. I have every right. They were my family too. The uncle's voice cracked. And I won't watch you destroy what's left of them by clinging to a stranger who just happens to smell familiar. The apartment fell silent except for our ragged breathing. Then I heard it, a small, broken sob from the hallway. The children stood there in their pajamas, tears streaming down their faces. The little girl clutched her brother's hand, her whole body trembling. Please don't fight, she whimpered. Please don't make them leave. We'll be good, we promise. We'll be so good. My heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. The uncle's face softened with regret, but the damage was done. The alpha moved toward his children, but the boy flinched back, his eyes wild with panic. You're going to send them away, the boy accused, his voice rising to a shriek. Just like Mama. Everyone leaves. Everyone always leaves. He turned and ran. I heard his bedroom door slam, heard the little girl wailing as her father tried to comfort her. The uncle stood frozen, looking sick with guilt. I didn't think. I just moved. The boy's door was locked, but I could hear him inside, gasping for breath in a way that terrified me. Sweetheart, please open the door, I called, trying to keep my voice steady even as panic clawed at my throat. Go away. You're leaving anyway. Everyone leaves. I'm not leaving, I said, and the words came out with absolute certainty. Do you hear me? I'm not going anywhere. You promise? His voice was so small, so broken. I pressed my forehead against the door, tears flowing freely now. I promise. I promise, I promise, I promise. The lock clicked. The door opened, and the boy collapsed into my arms, sobbing so hard his whole body convulsed. I held him tight, rocking back and forth, whispering promises I had no right to make. When I looked up, the alpha stood in the doorway, his face wet with tears. Behind him, his brother-in-law watched with an expression of dawning horror at what his words had caused. I'm sorry, I told the alpha, my voice breaking. I know this is wrong. I know I'm not helping. But I can't leave them. I can't. Even if it makes me selfish, even if it hurts everyone in the end, I can't watch them break like this. He knelt beside us, gathering both me and his son into his arms. His scent wrapped around us, cedar and smoke mixed with mine, creating something new and impossibly right. Then don't, he whispered against my hair. Don't leave. Please stay. And God help me, I knew I would. The uncle left that night without another word, but his accusations haunted me like ghosts. I moved into the spare bedroom the next day. It felt wrong to keep going back to my tiny apartment across the city when the children needed stability, when they woke up screaming from nightmares and only my scent could calm them. The alpha didn't ask me to stay permanently, he didn't have to. We both understood that something fundamental had shifted, that we'd crossed a line we could never uncross. But understanding something and accepting it were two different things. I started noticing things I'd missed before. The way the alpha's hands trembled when he poured his morning coffee. How he kept his late mate's belongings exactly as they'd been, like a shrine he couldn't bear to disturb. The photographs he turned face down when he thought no one was watching, only to turn them back up minutes later, as if punishing himself. He was drowning in grief, and I was the life raft he clung to, not because he wanted me, but because I smelled like the person he'd lost. The realization should have hurt more than it did. Instead, I felt a strange numbness settling over me, like ice spreading across a winter lake. 2 months passed. The children improved dramatically. They ate meals without coaxing, slept through most nights, laughed more freely. The boys started bringing home artwork from school again, bright, colorful drawings instead of the dark scribbles that had worried his teachers. The girl sang while she played, her voice sweet and clear. I should have been happy. This was what I'd stayed for, wasn't it? To help them heal? But late at night, lying alone in the spare room, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was living someone else's life. Wearing someone else's scent like a costume. Playing a role in a story that wasn't mine. Everything came crashing down on a Thursday evening. I was making dinner when I heard the alpha's voice from his study, low and anguished. The door was cracked open, and I knew I shouldn't listen. I knew it. But my feet carried me forward anyway, drawn by the raw pain in his tone. I know it's wrong, he was saying into his phone. God, don't you think I know? But when they smell them, when they smile like that, I can pretend, just for a moment, that you're still here. My blood ran cold. No, they don't know, he continued. How could I tell them the truth? That I'm only keeping them around because they smell like you? That would destroy them. He laughed bitterly. I'm already destroying them, aren't I? And myself. Every day I wake up and see their face and it's wrong, it's all wrong, because they're not you and they never will be. I stepped back, my hand flying to my mouth to stifle the sob building in my throat. I'd known, hadn't I? Deep down, I'd always known. But hearing it spoken aloud felt like being gutted. I stumbled back to the kitchen on numb legs. My hands moved mechanically, chopping vegetables, stirring pots, setting the table. When the children came running in, chattering about their day, I smiled and nodded in all the right places. When the alpha emerged from his study, his eyes red-rimmed, I served dinner like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. That night, after the children were asleep, I packed my belongings. Not much. I'd never fully moved in, never let myself believe this arrangement was permanent. Everything fit into one small suitcase, which felt horribly appropriate. I was zipping it closed when the alpha appeared in the doorway. You're leaving. It wasn't a question. I have to. The children will be devastated, I finished, my voice steady despite the tears streaming down my face. I know, but they'll heal. They're already healing. They don't need me anymore. That's not true. Isn't it? I turned to face him, and the guilt written across his features was answer enough. I heard you tonight. On the phone. I know why you really want me to stay. He flinched like I'd slapped him. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. My voice came out sharper than I intended. You're grieving. You're hurt. And I'm convenient. I'm a band-aid for a wound that needs surgery. But I can't do this anymore. I can't keep pretending that I'm enough, that my scent is enough, when we both know I'm just a pale shadow of someone you actually loved. It's not like that. Then what is it like? I demanded, something breaking open inside me. Tell me the truth. If I didn't smell like them, would you have ever looked at me twice? Would you have let me into your home, into your children's lives? Or would I just be another faceless Omega you passed on the street? The silence stretched between us, heavy and suffocating. That's what I thought, I whispered. I moved toward the door, but he blocked my path. Up close, I could see the war raging behind his eyes, grief and guilt and something else, something desperate. You're right, he said hoarsely. About all of it. When I first saw you, all I could think about was them. Their scent, their smile, the way they used to hold our children. I wanted to recreate that so badly it physically hurt. I used you. I kept you here for selfish reasons, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I waited, knowing there was more. But somewhere along the way, he continued, his voice breaking, something changed. I started noticing things. The way you hum when you cook. How you always give the children the last cookie even though I know you love them. The sound of your laugh, which is nothing like theirs but somehow just as beautiful. And it terrified me because I felt like I was betraying their memory by caring about you as you. Not as a replacement. Not as a ghost. As yourself. I stared at him, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. But I don't know if that's enough, he whispered. I don't know if I can separate my grief from whatever this is between us. And I can't ask you to stay while I figure it out. That wouldn't be fair to you. No, I agreed quietly. It wouldn't. I picked up my suitcase. This time, he didn't stop me. I made it all the way to the front door before I heard the small voice behind me. Please don't go. The boy stood in the hallway, his sister clutching his hand. Both were crying silently, their eyes wide and pleading. And I realized the cruelest truth of all. It didn't matter whether the alpha loved me or just my scent. It didn't matter whether this was right or wrong. I'd already chosen. I set down my suitcase. I couldn't look at the alpha as I carried my suitcase back to the spare room. The children followed me like shadows, their small hands clutching at my sleeves, afraid that if they let go, I'd disappear. We'll be better, the girl whispered desperately. We'll clean our rooms every day and eat all our vegetables and never fight. Just please stay. My heart twisted painfully. Sweetheart, you're already perfect. This isn't about you. Then what is it about? The boy asked, his voice sharp with an anger too old for his 7 years. Why do adults always leave when they say they won't? I had no answer that wouldn't be a lie. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, listening to the apartment settle around me. Around 3 in the morning, I heard footsteps pass my door. The alpha, pacing like a caged animal. I pressed my pillow over my face to muffle the sound of my crying. What had I done? Staying was selfish. Leaving would destroy the children. There was no right choice, only different shades of wrong. The next morning, I found a letter slipped under my door. The handwriting was elegant, unfamiliar. My hands shook as I unfolded it. Dear stranger who shares my scent, if you're reading this, then I'm gone, and my family has found you. I'm so sorry. I never imagined this could happen. 3 years ago, I was in an accident. I needed an emergency scent gland transplant to survive. The donor was anonymous, but they saved my life. I never thought about what it would mean, that someone else out there would carry my scent. That if I died, they might find my family and... I don't know what's happening in your life right now. But I know my mate. I know how deeply they love, how completely they grieve. And I know my children, how much they need stability, comfort, someone to hold them when the nightmares come. I'm not asking you to replace me. No one could. But if you've stayed this long, if you're reading this letter, then maybe you care about them too. My family deserves to heal. They deserve to love again without guilt. If you can help them do that in whatever way feels right, then you have my blessing. You have my gratitude. You are not a replacement. You are yourself. Never forget that. Please take care of them. And please, let them take care of you too. With hope. The Omega who came before. The letter slipped from my numb fingers. A transplant. They'd had a scent gland transplant. That's why we smelled identical, because we literally shared the same scent glands. The donor had been me. I donated 3 years ago after seeing an advertisement for the National Registry. They'd paid well, and I'd needed the money. I'd never thought about who received it, never imagined I'd meet them, never dreamed they'd become so important to me. I'd saved their life. And then I'd walked into a café and inherited everything they'd left behind. The bedroom door flew open. The alpha stood there, breathing hard, holding an identical letter. His face was white with shock. You knew, I whispered. You knew about the transplant. Not until last night. His voice was hoarse. After you tried to leave, I couldn't sleep. I was going through their things, trying to understand why this was happening, and I found they'd hidden letters. One for me. One for you in case we ever... He laughed, but it sounded broken. They planned for everything, even their own death. I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. They wanted this, he continued, moving closer. They wanted us to find each other, to help each other. But that doesn't make it easier, does it? Because now I don't know what I feel. Is it grief? Is it gratitude? Is it real, or am I just following their last wishes like a puppet? I don't know, I admitted. I don't know anything anymore. He sank down beside me on the bed, and we sat in silence, two people bound together by biology and tragedy and choices neither of us had made. I want to try, he said finally. Not to recreate what I had. Not to pretend you're someone you're not. But to build something new. Something real. Even if it's messy and complicated and takes years to figure out. What if we fail? I asked. What if we hurt the children more by trying? What if we don't? He countered. What if we actually manage to become something like a family? Before I could answer, something crashed in the kitchen. We both jumped up and ran. The children stood surrounded by broken dishes, flour covering every surface, eggs dripping down the cabinets. The girl's lip trembled. The boy looked defiant. We were making breakfast, the girl explained in a small voice. To say thank you for staying. But everything went wrong. I looked at the destruction, at their flour-covered faces, at the fear and hope warring in their eyes. And suddenly I started laughing. Real laughter that bubbled up from somewhere deep inside, releasing tension I'd carried for months. The alpha stared at me like I'd lost my mind. Then slowly his lips quirked. A chuckle escaped. Soon we were both laughing, bent over with it, while the children watched in confusion that gradually turned to giggles. Come here, I said, pulling them both into a hug despite the flour. They clung to me, and the alpha's arms came around all of us, creating a circle. We're going to figure this out, I said firmly. All of us, together. It won't be perfect. We'll make mistakes. But we'll try. Promise? The boy asked. I thought about all the promises I'd broken, all the ways this could go wrong. I thought about the letter from someone I'd never met but who trusted me with their most precious people. I promise, I said. But this time, you have to promise me something too. Anything, they both said immediately. Promise you'll tell me when you're sad or angry or confused. Promise you won't pretend everything's okay when it's not. And promise, my voice caught, promise you'll remember that I'm not your mama. I can't be. But maybe if we're lucky I can be something else. Something new. The boy was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. Can we call you by your name? It was such a simple thing. But it felt like the first real step forward we'd taken. Yes, I whispered. Please. The alpha squeezed my shoulder gently. Our eyes met, and I saw the same fragile hope I felt reflected back at me. We didn't have answers. We didn't have guarantees. But we had this moment, this choice, this chance. Maybe that was enough to start with.